ever feel like your mind's a runaway train, just totally stuck on the same track, going and going?
Definitely. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of being, well, a little bit on autopilot.
Right. So how do we step off that train, so to speak? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into some ancient Japanese wisdom. We're exploring how just 5 powerful concepts, and they're surprisingly practical, can help us regain control, find more presence, a bit more resilience in our lives.
And maybe even rediscover some of that inner peace, that wisdom that we've kind of lost touch with.
Exactly. We're talking Mushin, Shoshin, Gaman, Kintsugi, and Zanshin. Don't worry if you've never heard of them, we'll unpack each one. And I think you'll be surprised how relevant they still are today.
I'm really excited to dig into these. They're not just philosophical ideas, but tools we can actually use.
100%. So, should we start with Mushin? I always find this one a bit paradoxical, the art of no mind.
Right. It sounds a little intimidating, doesn't it? Like, are we supposed to just empty our brains?
Yeah, exactly. Who has the time for that, right?
Right. But actually, Mushin is not about emptying the mind completely. It's more about quieting that inner chatter, that constant stream of thoughts.
Okay, so less about erasing everything and more about finding some peace and quiet up there.
Exactly. It's about creating space for stillness and clarity.
So, like, when you're so absorbed in something you love, maybe painting, playing an instrument, or even just reading a great book, and you completely lose track of time?
Yes, that feeling of flow, of being completely present and in the moment, that's Mushin in action. And while it's often associated with those peak performance moments, the truth is we can cultivate Mushin in our everyday lives.
I like that. So, Mushin, it's about quieting the mind, being present. But how do we actually apply that to, the chaos of daily life? Is it really possible to just decide to be in the moment when you're, say, stuck in traffic or facing a mountain of emails?
Well, that's where Shoshin comes in. It's the idea of approaching life with a beginner's mind, that sense of curiosity and openness to new experiences, even in familiar situations.
So, instead of getting frustrated in traffic, maybe we use that time to practice mindfulness, to just be present with our breath, with the sensations in our body.
Exactly. It's about letting go of our preconceived notions and approaching each moment as if we're experiencing it for the first time.
That makes me think about traveling to a new place. Everything's exciting, you notice every little detail. It's like you're seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of Shoshin. It allows us to approach life and even those everyday frustrations with a sense of wonder and possibility.
And maybe even find some joy in those unexpected places.
Absolutely. And by doing so, we open ourselves up to new perspectives, new learning, and ultimately new possibilities for growth. But of course, life isn't always sunshine and roses, right? There are going to be challenges, moments that test our limits.
Yeah, for sure. That's where I think a concept like Gammon comes in. It's about facing those difficult situations with patience, perseverance, and inner strength.
It's about enduring hardship with dignity. And it's not just about gritting your teeth and bearing it.
Right, there's more to it than just toughing it out.
Exactly. Gaiman is about acknowledging the difficulty, feeling the full weight of those emotions, and yet choosing to move forward with resilience and grace.
So we're talking about quieting the mind with Mushin, approaching life with Shoshin, that beginner's mind, and then when things get tough, that's where Gammon comes in, right? That resilience to keep going.
It's amazing how interconnected these concepts are, aren't they? Like pieces of a puzzle that fit together to create a more balanced way of living.
Totally. And speaking of puzzles, that brings us to Kintsugi. It's a beautiful concept, but it's also a very literal one, right? We're talking about repairing broken pottery with gold.
Exactly. And that act of repair, of highlighting those cracks with gold, it transforms the piece, doesn't it? It's no longer about hiding the imperfections, but embracing them.
It's like those imperfections tell a story. They show that the piece has lived, it's been through something, and it's come out stronger on the other side.
Yes. And that's a powerful metaphor for how we approach our own lives. It's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of perfection, to try to hide our flaws. But Kintsugi teaches us that those imperfections are part of what makes us unique and beautiful.
It's almost like saying, hey, these scars, these cracks, they're not something to be ashamed of. They're part of my story.
And what's beautiful is that by embracing our own imperfections, we create space for others to do the same.
It's a reminder that we're all a little bit broken, a little bit messy, and that's okay.
It's more than okay, it's what connects us. We're all works in progress, right?
Definitely. And speaking of progress, I think it's time to talk about our last concept, Zanshin. The art of remaining mind. It sounds almost counterintuitive, doesn't it? Like, shouldn't we be trying to relax our minds, not keep them on all the time?
It's not about being constantly on edge, but rather cultivating a state of relaxed awareness. Think about it like this. You finish a task, maybe you send an important email or complete a big project.
And you can finally breathe a sigh of relief.
Sure. But Zanshin is that lingering awareness that remains even after the task is complete. It's about not immediately jumping into the next thing, but taking a moment to reflect, to observe the feeling of completion.
So instead of rushing through our to-do lists, we're incorporating these mindful pauses throughout the day.
Exactly. It's about finding those moments of stillness amidst the busyness.
But how do we actually make that happen? Life moves pretty fast, right?
Well, it's like anything else, right? It takes practice.
Mm.
The more we can bring that awareness into our everyday lives, those little moments, the easier it becomes to access that state of Zanshin when we really need it.
So it's about finding those mindful pauses throughout the day, even amidst the chaos.
Precisely. And, the beautiful thing about these five concepts, Mushin, Shoshin, Gaman, Kintsugi, and Zanshin, is that they work together. They support each other.
It's like they create a framework for navigating life with more presence, resilience, and even, dare I say, a bit more grace.
Absolutely. And the best part, they're not exclusive to any one culture or belief system. They're universal tools available to all of us.
And that's what I love about this deep dive. We're taking these ancient concepts and exploring how we can actually apply them to our modern lives.
It's about bridging that gap between ancient wisdom and modern living. And it's a journey, isn't it? It's not about achieving some kind of perfect state of Zen, but rather about showing up each day with a willingness to learn, to grow, and to keep practicing.
And maybe to be a little kinder to ourselves along the way, to embrace those imperfections, those cracks that make us who we are.
Exactly, because it's in those imperfections that we often discover our greatest strength and beauty.
Well said. Well, deep divers, it seems we've reached the surface of our exploration into the world of ancient Japanese wisdom.
But the journey doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning.
So as you go about your week, we invite you to choose one of these concepts: Mushin, Shoshin, Gaman, Kintsugi, or Zanshin, and see how you can weave it into your daily life. What shifts can you make? What new perspectives can you embrace?
Keep exploring, deep divers. And remember, the wisdom you seek is already within you.
Beautifully said. Until our next deep dive, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.